Welcome back everybody to the 16th episode in TerraFirmaGreg. As you may notice, things are looking slightly different this time around, and that's because we are in the new version, 0.12, which doesn't really change much for us right now. If you recall, before we reached medium voltage, we went through another update that completely changed both medium and high voltage, so they stay the same, I think at least. But at least for this episode, we are not gonna be concerned with that. For now, this is all of the world that we've explored. This was the super long trip we did to look for rose quartz, while over here we went to mine up some rhenium for our reformate line. And instead, this area here was to look for the kapok wood. So we didn't really explore a whole lot. And version 0.12 is exactly that, the world generation update. And the reason we care for that is because after we finally reach HV, I want to move again. If you recall, we already moved once, from this area all the way over here. So that means we're gonna take our airplane and we're gonna go, I think, southwest, because I think this is dry and hot, but I want to somewhat stay on the tropical line. We're gonna have to see. I've already designed the kind of base I want to build for HV, and currently I'm working on setting up all the different systems we're gonna need to have it running, because it's gonna be quite a high maintenance base, let me tell you. We're gonna need a ton of materials to make it work, and at the very least we're gonna need to be able to fly, because otherwise that base it's not gonna be suitable. Regardless of that though, today we're gonna focus on something else, which is the end of MV. If you recall, in the last episode we left off at making the 16 Kanthal coil blocks we need for a superior EBF. The reason I didn't do it in that episode, despite having all the materials needed to make it, is because processing the materials takes so long, it took me a few hours to actually finish. But now, in this crate, as you can see, I've got all the different materials needed to make them, which I think we can do in the basic assembler. I don't think we need the MV one. Okay. So the big idea here would be to use these materials plus some liquid cobalt to start making the 16 Kanthal coils we need. But alright, this is our first Kanthal coil block. The thing with coil blocks is that we could realistically make more than 16, and if we replace the coils on the machinery that actually house coils, we would get more efficiency. For example, the pyrolysis ovens are currently running at 75% efficiency, and that's because of the copper-nickel coil blocks. If we were to replace these with Kanthal coils, we would get the full efficiency, cutting down 10 seconds from the process. But as you can see here, we have almost filled up the reformate tank. And if you remember, there's also 4,000 more buckets in here, so I don't think we need more reformate efficiency right now. Instead, what I want to craft is gonna be the new EBF, because this is the only thing that's still standing between us and HV circuits. And as you can see, I've also finished setting up the quad EBF we got. And this has been producing steel and aluminium like there's no tomorrow. And just beside it we can go and have the other EBF. So I'm gonna want our inputs to go on this side and our output to be on this side instead. I'm just gonna need to move the glue line. I'm using LV hatches because we don't need to run this at HV. So now the Kanthal coils should have finished processing. And alright, we've got 15. And this is a valid EBF, so now we can just apply the maintenance. And that's it, we're gonna just need to cook a bunch of silicon dust. So I can already put this into the input, and I think we can add some gas. No, okay, there is no gas we can add, so it's just gonna sit on circuit 1. So now, as per usual, we just need our turbines, and then we can just point everything inwards and connect all of our cables. And that's it, we are now producing hot silicon ingots. We just missed the quest book because I didn't hold all 16 of them at the same time. That's hilarious. Now we just need to wait for the silicon to process, and we're gonna be able to craft the transistors. As you can see, 8 of them require a silicon plate, which is just a silicon ingot, which we're gonna need to cool down after the EBF is done processing. And aside from that, the transistors are really simple to make, because they just require a fine tin wire and liquid silicon rubber, which was one of the lines we built in the last episode. As you can see, we are now sitting at 50,000 buckets. And here I've kind of changed the chain. I switched from making methanol from biomass, which was extremely slow, to processing syngas with copper to make methanol. This recipe gives 3 buckets of methanol. And I was also looping this in the same chemical reactor. This is why there's some syngas here. And I've now stopped it because we had just so much metal, I didn't need any of that. And the way I'm grabbing synges from our system without shutting everything down is I added a tank pointing into another tank, because we are producing more synges than we are using. So once this one gets full, I just take it and use it for whatever I want to use some synges for. So it's really simple. And aside from that, I've also gone and added 2 more centrifuges. These are all centrifuging caplock. I think we are soon no longer gonna need any of these, but for now we still do. So, and instead here, this recipe is actually gonna be the circuit assembler, the MV circuit assembler to be exact, which as you can see requires HV circuits. And for that, I've got my inventory ready for all the stuff we're gonna need. Now we are just missing the transistors. And here we should already have a bunch of, hot silicon ingots. Okay, let's start processing these into the chemical bath, which is of course gonna use distilled water because we've got infinite amount of that. And also as you can see here, I've still got some more Kanthal and rough silicon carbide ingots, because we are not just gonna make Kanthal coils with this, and instead we're gonna be able to make a new circuit board. But for now, we can go here and make silicon plates. And finally, if we go and grab some liquid silicon rubber, as well as some fine thin wire which I was processing here in the wire mill, we should be able to just go into the assembler and start making transistors. So, we can now go underneath here to our circuit assembler, drop the transistors, a stack of each component, because we're not really gonna be able to hold more than that, and start making HV circuits. This is gonna take a while. Our first advanced integrated circuit. As per the end of low voltage, the next voltage tier machine is the circuit assembler. That seems to be a recurring theme. But this time we could also make the multi-smelter, which is also called the ultimate smelter, according to the quest book. And this would be an upgrade to our steam machinery, because for the next episode I don't really plan to progress a lot into the pack. We are gonna move our base, it's gonna be a Herculean task. And by the end of this episode, I'm gonna show you a sneak peek at the kind of base I want to make. And also, if you notice, this tab, which wasn't here before, shows us what we're gonna be able to find on Mars. And if I recall, there's also a page for the moon. Yeah, this is all stuff we already have. What we care about is gonna be these microprocessors, because these are gonna unlock the next tier of circuits. As you can see, we are still making resistors, we are still making CPU chips, we are still making fine red alloy wires, and as we just unlocked them, we are still making transistors. We are also gonna need capacitors, which are actually cheaper than transistors. We just need the liquid silicon rubber, aluminum, and polyethylene, so these are also gonna be pretty easy to make. But we're also gonna need the ceramic printed circuit boards. Starting from the beginning, we are gonna need to process in an arc furnace some molybdenum foils and silicon carbide plates. This is the same SiCs we used to make the Kanthal coils, after which we're gonna need some molybdenum ingots to turn into foils, and in the arc furnace we're gonna get molybdenum activated silicon carbide substrates, which we're gonna be able to react with nickel dust and sulfuric acid to get 4 ceramic circuit boards. And finally, in the chemical reactor, we're gonna be able to process these alongside the iron trichloride we've been using to make the phenolic circuit boards, alongside some annealed copper foils to make the ceramic printed circuit boards. And these of course we're gonna be able to use to make the microprocessors, as well as the microprocessor assembly, which is gonna be the next tier of HV circuits we're gonna make. So in this episode I also want to craft a bunch of these. This is also gonna unlock the microchip processors, which the quest book tells us are the best LV circuits that exist in the game. So that means we're never gonna have to fear making more of these, because there's nothing better than this. Although as you can see, if we were to use SoCs, which are a different kind of chip made from a different kind of wafer, which is something we're gonna unlock in HV, we would get more chips per process, but this says it's AV. We are still quite a way off from that. That information overload aside, we can finally grab everything we have here and make the advanced circuit assembler, possibly the last MV machine. Boom. So this also means we can start making the circuits here. So now it's just gonna be a matter of cycling through our silicon to make as many transistors as we can, and at the same time I should go ahead and start making aluminum foils for some capacitors. We already have a bunch of polyethylene sheets, so we can just grab some aluminum. That way we're gonna have everything we need for the next tier of MV circuits. Because, aside from that, making this tier of circuits is not strictly necessary to progress at the moment, because technically we are at the end of MV, although it doesn't feel like it because we are still missing a couple of things. But we do have the stainless steel as well as the HV circuits, which means we can start poking our head into HV. And to start off, I want to make 3 machines. I want to make an autoclave, because this thing is gonna allow us to make energium crystals, which are made from ruby and redstone, and this is gonna allow us to make a new set of armor, which is the nanomuscle. This is extremely cheap. Like, carbon fiber is just raw carbon fibers, which are made in an autoclave from carbon dust. Then you compress it, and then you compress it again, and that's it. So between the energium crystal and the carbon fiber, this thing is extremely cheap, which is why I want the autoclave. I'm also gonna want the next gas turbine generator, of course, because we are gonna need it for the HV tier, which doesn't seem that bad to make. I think we're gonna need, we just need the extruder. We're just gonna need some steel rotors and HV components. And then I guess we can make the assembler, but the components are mostly silver and gold and electrum, which is silver and gold, as well as steel. We are kind of swimming in both silver, gold and steel, so it shouldn't be that bad to make, you know? Also, in the meantime, we can start making more HV circuits, although I need the soldering alloy, of course. So I think it's time to start working on this stuff. And the first component I want to start making is gonna be gold cables, because this is gonna be basically the main cable for HV. But alright, of the 4 circuits we have, we are gonna need 4 for the turbines. Then we need 3 more HV hulls, because in the last episode we made the first one. And instead, for the autoclave and the assembler, we are just gonna need 2 more circuits and 2 more circuits. Now here we can make the HV hulls we need, or casings, and here in the assembler we can just turn them into hulls, and these are all the hulls we need, alongside the cables we need. Then we're gonna need a mold for the rotors, which should be plenty easy to make. I messed up. Okay, good thing we can try again. And with these, I'm just gonna extrude a whole bunch of steel ingots into rotors. And here we already have all the rotors we need for the gas turbines. And now it's time to start crafting the HV components. We're gonna need an HV electric pump, some HV motors, and 2 HV robot arms. By the way, here I'm still making transistors and making circuits, of course. And starting from the motors, we are just gonna need a bunch of electrum wire, as well as silver cables, and some stainless steel rods. So we can just go into the wire mill, set the circuit number 2, and start making both silver and electrum wires. And instead go in the lathe and start making stainless steel rods. And we are almost out of stainless steel, by the way, so we should start making some more, for which we are just gonna need a bunch of chromium, iron, nickel and manganese. And now with this stuff we should already be able to make a bunch of motors. Alright, of these motors, 4 are gonna be for the turbines, which also finally completes the first of the recipes. 1 is gonna be for the pump, and we're gonna need 6 more for the robot arms. Here we've also now got a stack of stainless steel, which we're gonna be able to quickly cook in our quad EBF. And also with the stainless steel, we are gonna need 1 pipe, which should be this one, and it should require 3 ingots, as well as some small gears. Now we can go and make a bunch more motors. Here we already have everything we need for the pump. For the mechanical arms, we're also gonna need some pistons, which are not too bad to make, but do require a motor still. And we also have the rods for the pistons, some more rods, and that's it. So we can go and craft the pistons, as well as the robot arms. And now we are just missing the pump, for which we already have the tools we need. And that's it! Oh, I just noticed we also need the conveyor modules. So that's 4 more motors. We just need a couple more stainless steel plates, a few more motors, and some tempered glass, which, if you recall, we made by putting glass in the arc furnace a second time. Okay, now we have all the electric motors we need. So if we grab some rubber sheets, we should be able, yes, to make both conveyor modules. That's finally it. We have everything we need to make the first 4 HV machines of the series. So now we can just grab everything, craft 2 turbines generators, an assembler, which is kinda crazy to make this early into the voltage tier, and the autoclave, which officially puts us into HV, because in my personal judgment, the way you reach a new voltage tier is by making the assembler of that tier, mainly because for both LV and MV, it took a fair bit to get, although now that I look back at it, it really was quite simple to make. And from now on, nothing in this base is gonna be permanent, because the base itself is not gonna be permanent. So now, the first thing I want to do is gonna be the Energium crystals, for which we're just gonna need some ruby dust as well as some redstone dust. So we should just be able to mix these. Okay, yeah, it's just circuit 1. Alright, perfect. And while we wait, we can go ahead and start making carbon fibers, for which we're gonna want rubber, no, plastic, never mind, into the LV autoclave. We already have the plastic, so let's just get a bunch of carbon, which we are swimming in, and just place everything in here. We should just be able to use our steam compressor. Yep, exactly. And I just want to check if it can actually make the carbon fiber plate. And yeah, we are gonna need a few of these, but the real star of the show is gonna be the Energium dust, autoclaved into the crystal, which I don't know how it's actually made. Just water. Okay, yeah, it is the same as the autoclave. This is gonna be super slow, and here is the first Energium crystal, which I think we should be able to place here to charge. Yeah, and these are also gonna be basically the new batteries, which I think make the battery alloy obsolete. I hope so. But now with this, we just need to keep compressing all the raw carbon fibers. And looking at the recipe for the nanomuscle, it seems we're also gonna need the night vision goggles from LV, which are scaringly easy to make. So let's go and make some. And also we can go and keep making Energium crystals. And they are gonna take quite a while to charge. Can I charge one while this one is working? No, I cannot. Of course it uses 2 amps, and we're only providing 1, so makes sense. But if it's slow to charge, then it's gonna be slow to uncharge as well. And while we wait for the lenses for the night goggles, we should be able to go here and start making all the carbon fiber plates we need, of which we're gonna need 24, which is the standard amount for a Minecraft armor set. Oh, okay. So that's the night vision goggles. And I think we want to invest into a turbocharger right now, because if this makes charging faster, then that's actually gonna be a really good thing to make. Yeah, this takes 10 minutes per battery, so yeah, let's actually make one. Okay, I think this is everything. Yeah, and this for now is gonna replace the assembler. Okay, I think I still cannot charge 2 at once. Or I guess it can, but it reduces the speed, so it doesn't really make sense. And I can also charge one over here at the same time. What we actually care about is that we can finally make the nanomuscle. Starting from the chest plate, the pants, the boots, and the helmet. Nullifies fall damage. Let me grab this crystal, which is almost full. Let me activate the discharge mode. And now, if I remove everything and put on this stuff, we get speed. Can we fly? No, we cannot fly. What do we get? We are fully insulated. We get night vision if we turn it on, speed 1, and no fall damage. So I guess this is just a really good suit that encapsulates some of the buffs we used to have. We still get the auto jump basically, and I'm not sure how you activate night vision, but that's not what I wanted. Let me check the quest book first. Okay, no, to fly we are not gonna be able to use the nanosuit, but if we make the electric jetpack, which I think, yeah, we can upgrade to HV, eventually, we should be able to make use of the hover mod, which apparently only works properly when used alongside the nanosuit, so it is still needed, just we also need a jetpack. And to make it, we're just gonna need some unneeded copper, a battery, a circuit, and some power thrusters, which are pretty easy to make. And this should be it. We should already be able to make the jetpack. Can I equip this on the back side? No, I cannot. So, how does this work? Okay, with this I can sort of fly like this. Now, I would like to know how to turn on hover mode. Which, okay, makes me slowly fall to the ground. So in theory, if I go and grab the nanosuit, I need both of these to be active. Okay, no, the advanced nanomuscle suit plate thing is the piece that combines the jetpack with the suit, with the chest plate. So we cannot really do what I was planning to do, which is fine. I wasn't planning on building while flying anyway. To build the HV base, we're gonna use the schematic cannon from Create. So the jetpack is just gonna be one of the ways we have to traverse our base. But now, looking at the end of MV, the last thing I want to do for this episode is gonna be the ceramic boards. So this simply means that just like we made for the Kanthal coils, we're gonna need to crush the rough silicon carbide ingots, make a bunch of hydrochloric acid, and then we just need to bake the rough silicon carbide dust alongside the hydrochloric acid to get the SiC. This is gonna take a bunch of time, of course, as with everything. Also, I did still have a whole bunch of silicon carbide ingots, at least the rough ones, and considering how long this is gonna take, I don't think there's any reason for me to show this more than once. So I'm gonna work this batch of 8 silicon carbide plates into the ceramic boards so that I can show you the steps one by one. The first of which is gonna be, as I said earlier, processing in an arc furnace the SiC plate alongside some molybdenum foils. Here I've already made a few. And after this, we're gonna need some nickel dust alongside some sulfuric acid in an LV chemical bath. And to get the sulfuric acid we need, we can very simply go grab the diluted sulfuric acid we got from our plastic line, stop producing distilled water, and we can start producing sulfuric acid. So now if I grab a bunch of sulfuric acid, as well as the molybdenum activated silicon carbide substrates, and also grab some nickel dust, we're gonna be able to get some ceramic circuit boards. And now the last thing we need is a bunch of annealed copper foils, and then, just like for the phenolic resin circuit boards, we can just go in a chemical reactor and react everything with some iron trichloride. And this is our first ceramic printed circuit board, which we didn't unlock, but this is gonna open up the door to start making MV circuits without needing to make LV ones first, and as you can see, this was the last new material we needed for this. And these circuits are gonna be the key to make the best HV tier circuits, which are already gonna allow us to double the amount we get. I guess there's also the inductors, but these looked to be really simple to make. Yeah, it's a steel ring, plastic and annealed copper wire. This is nothing basically. So aside from the ultimate smelter and the large steam boiler, which I don't care about because we are not doing steam, we have got everything in MV. We did miss some stuff I didn't go for because once we decided the reformate was gonna be our power line, I didn't see any reason to start making fluid drills to get oil or start cultivating plants to produce natural oil. But instead, for everything else, we basically got everything. There's also gonna be this kind of stuff that's gonna protect us from radiation, but this is not a priority at the moment. So we can finally start looking onward towards HV. And I think it's also time we start talking a bit about the series, because the last few episodes I've done, something I didn't like was the fact that I'm kind of going through this series like it was a checklist. The quest book does help with that, being a literal checklist, but I never get the time to stop and start talking about stuff I might want to talk about aside from the game. I don't think that really fits in the playthrough, but I also do want to do it because I'm also gonna change the schedule for every new episode. Until now, as you know, I've basically posted one episode a week, almost every week since I started this series, at least aside from a few hiccups that I got along the way because real life often gets in the way. This episode itself is gonna come out 2 weeks after the previous one instead of a single one, and I think going this fast makes me appreciate the pack less, because every episode I want to be meaningful, and for that to be the case I want to focus on progressing, but that also means I've basically left behind everything else about the game, and I think that's a bit of a shame. Our factory here started out as a single building, and my plan was to make smaller buildings around and connecting everything with Create Logistics to make a proper factory and a proper base. Instead, as you can see, I basically ditched the whole idea and just expanded the cube. It's not quite a lawn base, but it basically is. It's just a lawn base with some walls and a roof. It's not really anything pretty. I don't particularly like this base. I don't like the position. I don't like the terraforming I've done. I don't like the interiors. It's just a gallery of everything I've built, and that's it. And I thought that since we are now at the end of MV, now is the perfect moment to relocate. We were just entering the steam age when we relocated, and now we spent basically all of the steam age, the ultra low voltage tier, the low voltage and the medium voltage tier all in this base. And it shows, because this has become quite a mess. I've tried to make everything fit, but it just doesn't. And now we are just at the doorstep of HV. Ideally, I'm gonna stop playing this pack after we reach the end of EV. The reason for that is because IV and LUV are still in progress. The devs of this pack are still working hard on the last 4 ages of GregTech to integrate them cohesively into the game. I thought it's probably gonna be a good idea to stop at AV and instead just prepare our base for IV, when we're gonna relocate once again. For most likely the last time, because I don't think I'm gonna make one more base after IV, so that's gonna have to be a really good base. But looking at the near future, I wanted to spend HV and EV in the same base, and the only recurring theme I noticed between the two of them, since I know nothing about either, is space travel. In HV, we're gonna go to the moon, and in EV, we're gonna go to Mars, if I recall. So speaking of looking at the future, let's jump real quick to my creative world. I think the last time we came here was to show you the Reformate setup, while here I was just testing out Create Logistics, but what I want to show you is actually in the sky, because this is my idea for our HV base. I have already somewhat spoiled this in the Discord server, the official TFG one, which is where you can find me from time to time. As you can see, this tile is Solarpunk, and here I mistakenly got into this world without disabling the landslides, so we lost a chunk of the island, but that's fine, I've got a backup before I got in this version. And here, as you can see, this would be our new factory. No stairs, because we're gonna be able to fly from now on. And the theme is of course gonna be space traveling, so this is an observatory. I still haven't thought up anything for the insides, but what I want to avoid this time around is gonna be making a Greg cube, which is why the building is a cylinder. No, I'm joking. The way I'm gonna avoid making a Greg cube is gonna be by having single islands dedicated to passive lines. For example, this sort of oil rig, that was the inspiration at least, is gonna be the island where we produce Reformate. Inside of here is a quadruple Reformate line. There's 4 liquefaction towers and 8 pyrolysis ovens. And here I'm still trying to figure out how to handle all the pipes and the wires, which is why it's still somewhat open and stuff. And here I was just designing, okay, wow, this is horrible. But yeah, holes aside, here I was basically just designing the kind of islands I wanted to make. And to build all of these, as I said earlier, we're gonna use the schematic cannon from Create, because building flying stuff is gonna be an incredible pain. So that's gonna be a really big help. And to connect everything, the really big comeback is gonna be Create Logistics. More specifically, High Logistics. With these, we're gonna be able to set up auto crafting and crafting on demand, instead of batch crafting, so as long as we have the materials, we're gonna have the components. And to do this, there would be a simpler option, which is Applied Energistics 2, which should be unlocked in HV, not entirely sure where specifically, but even though we're gonna have access to that, I really want to start playing this mod more like Minecraft, and not like Factorio, which means I want to give precedence to building a nice base in a style that makes sense, rather than going for the most efficient thing possible. I've already got plenty of ideas in mind. For example, I want to connect every island with chain conveyors and maybe have them stick like between clouds or small blimps between the islands. And we could also have a floating monorail going around the whole archipelago. But for now, as you can see, I've only got a couple of islands done and I still haven't thought of how to set up the entire archipelago around the main island, and this is gonna take weeks to finish. Alongside that, I'm also gonna need to finish studying Create Logistics. I'm gonna need to understand how to create a system that's able to route everything we produce back to our main storage, or at least have access to the storage of each island, and be able to request anything I want with a single click. To make this efficient and clean, it's gonna take another few weeks, so I think you can start to see the problem with the next few episodes, because this is gonna be a massive transitory period which is gonna take weeks to finish, and I want to do this before starting HV. In the main factory, I'm only gonna hold the machines we need to operate manually, for example the quad EBF, or the liquefaction tower I use to produce gem slurries, but even then we could automate that somewhere else. So I am gonna need to figure out what to properly keep in this main island, and since you guys most likely know more than me about everything about this pack, I would massively appreciate if you could help me out and figure out what should go where and how to connect everything properly, because that's gonna be the real challenge. But aside from that, for this episode is gonna be all. The next few weeks of work are gonna be mostly off camera. I'm gonna need to design the whole base, I'm gonna need to learn to create logistics, and I'm gonna need to create a whole system to connect everything together. And after that, I'm gonna need to go back into our main world and gather up all the materials we need to build everything. So yikes, yeah, that's gonna take a lot of time, and none of that is related to progress, so I don't know how much I'm gonna record. I was thinking of streaming this stuff. That's probably a better option. I'm fairly certain that designing stuff in live would be much more efficient than recording it, because you guys could give me live feedback on the moment, and you could also help me out when I get stuck or go out of ideas. So we might switch our schedule and stop the episodes for a few weeks to get in turn some live streams all about designing the base and the related systems. Please do let me know what you think about it in the comments. Instead, for this episode is gonna be all, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. As per usual, a massive thank you to our channel members: Chosnik, Cycle, Inkling, Thordrip, Noon Movies, Duped, Demosh Konholz, Marcos Janet, Andriy Podalienic, Wordflows, Plaindro+, Jetzicato, Kostas, Cryonix, Ikari, Yasting, and Plumber. And until the next one, see ya!